I want to give you all an in-depth analysis of my 12 weeks of training that led up to my sub-15 5K. Now don't take this as a lesson on how to break 15, but take it more as a lesson on how to structure your training to lead to a good 5K. So my first week of training wasn't really much training at all. I ran one run of 4 miles, and throughout the rest of the week I kind of just did some lower leg strengthening and stability stuff because I was coming off some pretty bad peroneal tendonitis, so I wanted to get that fixed up before I got to consistent running again. There wasn't much to my next 2 weeks either. It was all just easy running. This was basically like the foundation to my foundation. Before I got back into workouts, I just needed to be consistently running again. So those 2 weeks I ran mileage of 35 and 40. Next, I planned a 6-week cycle that served as my base phase. I would focus on a few different workout components, and I would progress the mileage slowly throughout these 6 weeks. So my mileage goal for these 6 weeks went from 50 with a day off, to 60, to 55 with a day off, to 65, to 70, and then finish with 65 with a day off. So the workout components that I used throughout this 6-week cycle were threshold workouts, hill workouts, what I call easy speed, and long runs. So starting with the threshold workouts. Threshold workouts are designed to improve your body's ability to clear lactic acid at faster running speeds. Everyone has his or her own threshold pace where your body is clearing lactic acid as fast as it is produced. The thing you need to understand here is that running faster than this pace does not cause your body to clear lactate faster, but it just causes more muscle micro tears, which basically just means your recovery time will be longer. So how do you know what your threshold pace is? For this, I used a running calculator based on Jack Daniel's running formula. You can find a link to the calculator down in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. So Jack Daniel's calls it VDOT. VDOT is basically just a measurement of your current ability based on a recent race performance. VDOT is also an abbreviation for your aerobic capacity, or how much oxygen your body can consume during an hour of exercise. So with this VDOT calculator, you can input a 5K time or any other race time, and it will give you estimates of your threshold pace, easy pace, marathon pace, and a few other things that are pretty interesting to look at. The difficult part for me was knowing exactly what my current race ability was, because I'm just coming off a break. I hadn't raced since November, so I really have no idea what I could do in a race right now. I did know that with just 2 weeks of consistent training and light workouts, I could probably get myself into about 1550 to 16 flat 5K shape. So I entered a time around there into the running calculator, and that gave me a threshold pace of about 530. I knew I probably wasn't ready for that 530 pace yet, so I wanted to run 530 pace in weeks 3, 4, 5, and 6 of this training cycle. So for the first 2 weeks, I just slowed that down a little bit and said I was going to run a threshold pace of 540. So now I wanted to come up with a progression of threshold workouts throughout these 6 weeks. So the way I progressed was weeks 1 and 2, I wanted to do 4 miles of threshold work. Weeks 3 and 4, I wanted to do 5 miles of threshold work. And then for weeks 5 and 6, I got up to 6 miles of threshold work. These threshold workouts also alternated every week from threshold repeats to a tempo run. So weeks 2, 4, and 6 were all tempo runs, and then weeks 1, 3, and 5 were repeats of threshold pace. So the threshold repeats were always either mile repeats or 2-mile repeats, just enough to get the desired threshold volume for the week. And I would just do 400-meter jog recovery between all of those reps. It's also worth noting that I did every single one of these threshold workouts on grass, so the pace that I was running is probably worth a little bit more than the threshold pace that I was supposed to run, because a race on the track translates to a threshold pace on the track based on the calculator. So the next workout component that I'll talk about is the easy speed. The objective of this easy speed was to get some neuromuscular benefit, just so my body wouldn't be as shocked when I got to a race. These workouts were not meant to be difficult in any way, but they're just meant to touch on some faster paces. I did an easy speed workout in weeks 2, 4, and 6. To figure out my pace for these, I just used the repetition pace on the VDOT calculator. My repetition pace was 33 seconds per 200 based on that 1550 to 16 flat 5K. So again, for the first 2 weeks, I wanted to start off a little slower, so I started off real conservative with 34. So the structure of these workouts would be something like 8 times 200 or 8 times 300 with full rest, so it might be 2 minutes. Again, they're not very difficult, but something just to touch on the speed a little bit. The next component of training that I used was the long run. The purpose of this was just to improve my endurance and get an extended aerobic effort. So I had a long run every week. On weeks that I had easy speed workouts, I would do an easy long run, and then weeks that I did not have easy speed workouts, I would take those long runs as a little bit more of a workout effort and go a little faster on them. I pretty much progressed the mileage of those long runs the same way that I progressed my weekly mileage goals throughout the 6-week cycle. Now the last workout component that I want to talk about is the hill workouts. These weren't what you typically think of as hill workouts for distance runners. These were more of a resistance training for me and a way to work on mechanics uphill. So a typical hill session for me would be something like 6 times 50 meters high knees, 6 times 50 meters bounding, and 4 times 100 meter sprint, all uphill, and I would just take a jog recovery back down the hill. I typically place these hill workouts somewhere in the middle of the week, usually the day before the easy speed workout or the harder long run. So any other day on this calendar that is not filled in, I just had a distance run or a recovery run or a day off. For those runs, I might have been anywhere from 6:45 to 8-minute pace. It kind of depended on the day. That's one thing I've really learned how to do throughout this past training cycle, is how to run slow and actually recover. Throughout these 6 weeks, I also had 2 races. The first one was 2 weeks into the cycle, and it was just a road race 5K. It didn't interrupt my training much, but it was just a good opportunity to see where my fitness was at. So I ran 15:59 on the roads, and that was pretty much just a validation of my threshold pace. The other race was planned at the end of this cycle all along. I would end this training cycle with a 5K on the track to see where I was at, and I would use that 5K to base my goals for the next 3 weeks. I ran 15:13 at the end of that cycle on the track, and I was super happy with that because that was off of 0 race-specific work. So now at this point, breaking 15 was a very realistic goal. So I set the goal of breaking 15 at the KU relays, which was about 3 weeks away from the end of that 6-week training cycle. So I just wanted 2 race-specific workouts, and I wanted to place them both 1 to 2 weeks out from my KU relays 5K. I always like to place my hardest workouts 1 to 2 weeks out because I think that's the time period that helps me peak the best. So my first harder workout was the lumberjack, and that was the 4 times 400 2-mile tempo, 4 times 400 2-mile tempo, 4 times 400. This workout was designed to get a good amount of repetition at or under 5K pace while still getting some good threshold work in between. The hardest workout of the cycle was the step down ladder, which I placed 8 days before KU. This one was just designed to test myself a little bit and put in 5K of work at faster than 5K pace. So I structured the rest of my training around these 2 workouts. I started off this cycle with a 4-mile tempo run just to get my legs going again after the race, and then I also had another threshold workout that was 4 times 2K with 400 meter jog rest. Even though I just ran 15:13, I kept my threshold pace at 5:30 because I didn't want to increase too much with the addition of these newer workouts, and I wanted to show up at the race ready to go and not tired. My last workout was just a little tune-up workout. I put it 3 days before the race. It was just a workout to feel out some paces and to feel confident and good going into KU. So my mileage throughout these weeks went 64, 62.5, and 40. The extent of my tapering was pretty much just doing 4 miles the day before the race. That 40-mile week mostly was low because of rest after the race. For me, 60 miles per week is really easy to hit, so I just didn't see the need to taper that much. So looking at the entire 12 weeks of training as a whole, I did not have one unsuccessful workout or race. And that is because I planned the training well and I know exactly what I'm capable of. No matter how easy the pace felt in any workout, I stuck to it because that's what allowed me to stay consistent and injury-free. So remember that this is not a guide to breaking 15. Just because you can train at a certain level does not mean you should train at that level, because I guarantee a lot of people could do this training that I'm doing right now. Training within your own capabilities and running the paces that you are supposed to run is going to lead to optimal results for you. So I hope you learned something through this video about how to structure your training. I haven't figured out what my next goal is yet, but until then, I'll catch you next time.